Hey class, time for lesson 11 in the fractions unit. Today we're going to talk about reciprocals. Okay, I know that a lot of you are really confused because in the fraction vocabulary I probably gave you too much information and it was kind of a hard definition. So in our actual lesson about reciprocals today, we're going to have like an easy to understand, the absolute must know in order to use it for fractions. And then for people who want to dig a little bit deeper and want to know a little bit more about some of the fun things you can do with reciprocals, how it's going to affect later on in algebra and classes like that in 8th grade and in high school, then you can go ahead and watch that. What you're really going to need for this lesson is just like mixed numbers and improper fraction review and rewriting of fractions. So why do you care? Specifically, you care because in a couple of lessons when we start doing division with fractions, you won't be able to divide without knowing how to find a reciprocal. And then finally, goals for the lesson: learn how to find a reciprocal for fractions and whole numbers and mixed numbers. Present kind of like just I have written down a working knowledge. That's that easy part, the stuff that you absolutely need to know in order to have success when it comes to just your class right now for fractions. And then a harder part, a deeper lesson on reciprocals and how they work and why we use them. Okay, so let's look at the first section. Okay, I have a new definition. It says a fraction found by putting the numerator on the bottom and the denominator on the top. Great. Flipping a fraction, which is really all you're doing. You're going to flip the spots. You're going to bring this denominator up, you're going to bring the numerator down, and you're going to end up with 4/3. Congratulations, you now know what a reciprocal is, and you have found one for a fraction. Next question I get a lot on work in the past, or have gotten a lot of work, is, Mr. Gorman, I know I'm supposed to flip it, but I have a whole number. What do I do? Well, you have to remember how to rewrite your whole number as an improper fraction. So if I take a 3, if I just put a 1 underneath, I'm done with that. Then we're going to follow that same plan. We're going to flip them, just like we did before. So instead of 3/1, we now have 1/3. It's going to be a real quick lesson today, isn't it? Next up, what if I have a mixed number? Well, you can't flip it until you turn it into an improper fraction. So that's what we're going to do first. You need to do your denominator times your whole number, because for every one whole number, there's going to be however many parts it says in the denominator. And then you're going to need to add your numerator. So 7 times 4 is 28. If you don't know that, you need to do it on the side and show your work. 7 times 8 is 24, or sorry, 7 times 4 is 28, plus 6 is going to give us 34. So I'm going to write it out. 7 times 4 equals 28. Plus those 6 will give us 34, and just like we did in addition and subtraction and everything else so far, we're going to keep our denominator. Okay, so now I have 34/7, and we're going to, just like we have previously, flip the spots, and I will have 7/34. Okay, that's how you're going to find your reciprocal for all of those. For the majority of you, that's all I need you to watch. If you want to keep going and maybe get some extra credit points, you're welcome to do so. But if you want to stop right there, if math is hard for you and you just say what you're going to do next is going to be too confusing, Mr. Gorman, that's fine. Okay, you're going to be able to answer all the questions in your work for reciprocals and do all of the division that you'll need to do later on in a couple of lessons. All right, so those of you who want to go on, here it is. This is the hard part of the video, and it's not required for class. You may stop here if you like. Reciprocal. A number that gives a product of 1 for a specified number. Okay. You're going to look, a product, remember, that's going to tell us we're doing multiplication here. So I have something times something, and it's got to give me a product of 1. Okay, and the specified number, this part, the specified number I've written down is that one. Whatever number they tell you. If they want a reciprocal for 58, you need to find the reciprocal of 58, which is whatever number you can put here that will, when multiplied with 58, give you 1. Okay, so a real good example for that, we're going to use the number 4. Okay, we're going to use the number 4, and I want you to figure out what number times 4 equals 1. Well, we're going to work a little bit backwards. Okay, what's the opposite of multiplication? All right, Opposite of multiplication is division. So instead of multiplying through or just guessing at a number here, what we can actually do is take our product here and turn it into a dividend. So we're going to do a division problem instead, and I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to put the 1 over here and ask you to divide it by 4. Okay, you guys, I know you've done decimal division with me, so I'm going to have you do the problem. Put the 4 on the outside and 1 on the middle. Okay? You know that 4 doesn't fit into 1, so you're going to put a 0. And when that happens, you need to put a decimal in and add another place value. Okay? 4 fits into 10. Line up your decimal. 4 fits into 10 2 times for 8. If you subtract out, you're going to get 2. Now I've run out of room, but remember with decimals, we're not going to be using remainders. Okay? So I'm going to put another 0, extend my line, bring down the 0. Okay, and 20. 4 fits into 25 times. Okay, because we've gotten to that 0, we're done. So 0.25, 25 hundredths. 25 hundredths. I know that we practiced saying the word form of decimals a lot when we did the decimal unit, but I want you to listen to those words again. 25 hundredths. And we're going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to use a section right here. Okay? We're going to use a little bit of knowledge that we gained before. Okay, and I've got 4, and if I write that as a fraction, you guys know to put a fraction bar and a 1. I've got that. And now, I've said that 25 hundredths, 0.25, times 4 is going to give me 1. Let's write 25 out of 100. 25 hundredths, which we can reduce. We can divide both of those by 25. I'm going to do that in blue down here. So if I divide 25 by over 100 by 25 over 25, 25 divided by 25 is going to give me 1. And 100 divided by 25 is going to give me 4. Okay, so I'm actually going to erase this. So now you're going to see that what I have is been proven by using decimals. Okay, if I put a 1 there, but that's because 4 times 1 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 divided by 4 equals 1. Okay, so that digs a little bit deeper and shows how they're found. Okay, and now let's look at something that, you know, might be kind of interesting. I ran out of space, so I'm going to add another page here. Okay, you can probably use space still on your page. You probably don't write as big as I need to in order to make this easily read on the board. So one way that we use reciprocals, or that you'll use reciprocals going forward, is you're going to use it to solve algebraic equations, which you probably haven't even heard before those words. But it's essentially like what we just did there up top. Remember when I had the 4 times something equals 1 blank? Well, the blank in math, we don't really use blanks or question marks. We use variables, which we've talked about in a previous lesson. And so you're going to come up with problems where you have something like 4x equals 28, and you need to figure out what the x is. Well, one thing you need to do is remember that this is actually a fraction. Okay, so 4 times x, one way to get rid of that, if we only want x, you have to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. You'll multiply by the reciprocal, because then what happens there, when you multiply both sides by the reciprocal, is this. Okay? I'm changing them both the same way, right? I'm going to be multiplying by this and by this. I should have used a different variable since I'm still putting the little x multiplication symbol. You don't really do that in algebra, and we'll start to phase that out and use little dots or parentheses for numbers. But if I do 1 times 4, it gives me 4, and 4 times 1 is 4. So this, remember, will cancel itself out from your super reducing part in the mathematics video. Okay, so that leaves you only with your x there. And then this side, I can reduce 1 and 1, and I can divide both 28 and 4 by 4. If I do that, this gives me a 1, which I can cross out, and this turns into a 7. So once I've crossed everything out, the only thing I'm left with is x equals 7, okay? I told you this would be a little more advanced and not necessarily what you needed to do for our lessons here, but for those of you who stuck around and were interested, thanks for paying attention. I hope you found it interesting. If you want to see a couple more problems, come on in to class tomorrow and I'll show you a couple more examples. Have a great night. Bye-bye.